Hello again. Caesar here for the third installment of back-to-back episode 5, where Stick and I are discussing the kind of nuances of through hiking versus section hiking. And I was really happy and interested in his reply, so thanks again to Stick. And I must also say thanks for all the kind words and positive feedback. It's humbling and flattering. I really appreciate it. And just know that, of course, I think the same about your content and your contributions to the backpacking and ultralight backpacking community. And you're just an all-around nice guy, which is perhaps not a very common thing, especially on the internet. But yeah, I have some points here written down. I watched your video a few times and I wanted to address a few things, but before I address some of the specific points that you made, I wanted to kind of take a step back and see, perhaps explain why I'm so interested in this kind of phenomenon in the backpacking community, how there are these different sub communities within communities, which is itself the backpacking community is kind of a part of like the outdoor enthusiast greater community. All this I find fascinating. I'm just very interested in social dynamics and other things too that are related, like evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, how we interact. Just, I guess, the human condition in general is something that's very fascinating to me. So of course, a passion of mine, such as backpacking, I'm going to be interested in the kind of inner workings of the social aspects of this hobby. I took a short hiatus from outdoor life when I moved to Sweden, and then afterwards, after I kind of settled down here, and I went online and I discovered, like, I was really kind of in the dark with a lot of things. There was a lot of progress that was made, and that ultimately led to me becoming an ultralight backpacker. But of course, none of this would have been possible without this matrix, which is mostly social, matrix that is, the internet and blogs and forums and all that is made up of people giving their input. So yeah, I think that's a really amazing thing, actually. And I mean, look at how we're having a virtual conversation. I think sometimes we kind of forget, that we live in this kind of age where if people want to have like a virtual conversation, and other people can of course leave comments and all that. Very cool. But anyway, I digress. So first example, I wanted to kind of just give a little bit more in, I guess, like I'll elaborate on a little bit more, because I thought it was a very good example that Stick gave. Stick talked about when it comes to what is through hiking versus section hiking. And by the way, Stick, thank you for your patience and being way more, I guess, methodical about the questions. You like listed the questions off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I appreciate that. I know I can be very scatterbrained and kind of rant and rave and all that. So yes, but the first question was, what is the difference? And the example you gave of like a person doing like 2 big section hikes of, like, say, the Appalachian Trail, or is that a through hike, or then I think too we could use this to complicate the definition, and I think this is a good thing. I mean, making complications is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it helps us to greater understand kind of the nuances of different terms and people, etc. So you have let's say a through hiker who takes a week-long break on a trail. I don't know, they sprain their ankle or something. Does the trip then become a section hike? I think it's interesting how things break down, how all definitions seem to, that's not related to this discussion, but how there is a trend though that definitions kind of break down when you like poke at them. But yeah, I'm very glad to hear that you feel like that it's a very inclusive community in the United States on the Appalachian Trail, that through hikers, section hikers, there's not a divide. Of course, when I bring up, if there's a difference it was just an honest question. I mean, the thru hikers that I have the most experience with is really online. As I said, I only run into a few thru hikers here in Sweden, and there are different social dynamics here in Sweden. For example, when I meet Swedish backpackers, Swedish culture in general, and this is a generalization. Obviously, not all Swedish people are like this, but I find that many Swedes are more reserved. They're friendly, you know, don't get me wrong, but they're just kind of, you know, I want to say collectively as a society, often it can feel like people are very shy. And I've talked to other immigrants here in Sweden, and you know, there seems to be a consensus on this matter, you know, but the United States, especially the south of the United States, kind of has, you know, a reputation for being more friendly and hospitable. But I'm happy to hear that, yeah, that that people are, you know, cool on the trail. That's very good to hear. But yes, let's move on to the trends in section hiking versus through hiking. And thanks for kind of talking about your own, you know, your own things that keep you back. You know, family, missing family, of course. You know, as a father and a husband, you know, I feel the same way. That's definitely something holding me back. And in fact, something I wish I would have elaborated on, like when I talk about winning the lottery, I would want my family to come with me. Maybe not for the whole through hike, you know. I would maybe want them to meet me at the next, I don't know, town or village or whatever. But that's like, you know, dream situation, the perfect through hike, you know. But I think more realistically is that in the future, when my children are much older, then I can go on a through hike, you know, and not worry about them, and we could keep in touch, you know, better, you know, as they're older as well, so we can still, you know, keep contact, right? So yeah, but another thing I wish I would have talked about more in part one is, and I wrote in the description of part one, I kind of wrote a note about this, is that I see certain patterns, and this is me with my, you know, kind of interests again. They're becoming more and more apparent. Like, I like to see patterns, you know, in social dynamics, and so the one pattern I see in like section hiker versus through hikers, that I noticed that many through hikers, especially like the really hardcore through hikers, the ones that triple crowners and go all over the world, even doing different through hikes, that many of them do not have children, and many of them are single. So I think that's certainly, and I have no data, like hard data to back this up, other than I can, you know, think off the top of my head, and I listed this too on part one in the description, like several different backpackers that are these hardcore through hikers that are single, from what I understand, and don't have children. The not having children part is much easier to kind of glean than, you know, the single part. But anyhow, so there seems to be a trend with section hikers having families versus, you know, through hikers who in general seem not to. That's the trend, at least. But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover. I just wanted to unpack, you know, the different nuances. Again, that's a word I love to use, of course, because I like to see the little details of complex things, especially, you know, because I'm very interested in this topic. I think, too, a follow-up for this topic was kind of necessitated because this topic is more abstract, you know. Before, with my back-to-back series, I've done, you know, more, I guess, concrete issues like knives for backpacking, for example, or rain gear for backpacking. But yeah, and let me just wrap up by saying just a few things. You said that you weren't sure if this was like, you know, what I was looking for. It was exactly, you know, what I was looking for. I thought you gave me more than I wanted, so thank you for that. Don't feel bad about your reply at all. I thought it was very interesting, and I love that you also kept the certain things in the video, like your beeper going off, and we got you to use a cliche term, like you kept it real, and I appreciate that. And that's also something that's a part of the reason why I want to do back-to-back, like the online kind of personalities, you know, that I like to read about the backpacking, or the backpackers who, you know, I follow online. I'd like to know, you know, more about them. I'm just curious, right? I can't help but be curious, like, you know, what jobs do they have? What lives that they lead, you know. So getting a glimpse of like you at home, kind of just having a conversation and, you know, hanging out in your scrub bottoms, you know, and your beeper and all that. I find that really, you know, endearing and really, you know, great. You get to see kind of like a more, you know, I guess human, you know, side to people. Well, all right, I've rambled on for long enough. If you so desire, you can make a part 4, or perhaps, you know, if you don't want to beat a dead horse, I can appreciate that too. As before, I'm interested to hear what other people think. You know, feel free to participate in this discussion. It was very interesting. I look forward to more content from Stick and perhaps future collaborations. And yeah, that's that. I didn't even talk about gear. All right, hope this was interesting. And yeah, happy trails to everybody. Goodbye.